Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Welcome to a new video. Don't worry, I'm not going to speak in Spanish this whole video. But yes, I am going to wear my sombrero this entire video because I spent 100 euros on it and I am obsessed with it, so I'm going to get my money's worth. I love this hat. It's called actually sombrero in the style of Cordoba, which is in the south of Spain where they're famous for flamenco. So that's why the style. Anyway, in this video today, I want to give you my 10 top tips if you're coming to Madrid for the first time, not just as a tourist, but kind of as I've come here, quasi-digital nomad, quasi just sort of coming to live for a couple weeks and to see what it was like. I had never been to Spain before this trip, so I really just jumped in head first, knowing nothing at all, but there are a few things that I learned along the way that I want to pass on to you if you are interested in coming to Spain or coming to Madrid specifically. Just a few tips, some few things to know, actually 10 in total we're going to go through. I'm going to jump right in. Let's go to number 1. So the very first thing is when you arrive here in the airport, do not buy a SIM at the airport. Normally that is always my recommendation and that's what I do in every single country I visit, but for whatever reason, here in Spain there was only one shop that was selling SIM cards and they were selling them for 45 euros for a month-long data package, and I knew that that was crazy, and even I had read online that it should not cost that much. So if you don't need data right away, what I recommend is waiting until you get into the city so you can take a taxi from the airport, and that's fine. Usually I take an Uber, but the taxi, no problem. It's a flat fee of like 30 euros if you have a lot of luggage like I did, so no metro for me. I bought this Digi SIM card for only 10 euros. Instead of 45. So I saved myself like $40 or more by buying this SIM card, which lasts a month, came with 20 gigabytes of data and I think like unlimited texting and unlimited calls in Spain. So this was more than sufficient and way, way cheaper. So the second thing to know about Spain, or at least Madrid, is that Uber does work here and it works pretty well. There's even Uber Eats, but I don't think it works as well. There is a better app actually called Glovo. For Glovo, what if you want food, if you need a courier, if you need, they can pick up pretty much everything. Like I'm looking at the app, which is by the way in English for all of you non-Spanish speakers. So I've used it a bunch of times to order food delivery, but I also used it once to courier over a sweater that a lover had picked up for me and was not ready to return to me. And then also pharmacy and beauty, like there's just tons of things. Basically, they're a courier service and they can do everything for you. So that app is called Glovo. I'll like write it down below in case that's too hard to spell, Glovo. Works really well. And yeah, if you're staying here for a long time, you don't feel like cooking, you don't feel like going out, order in, use Glovo. That's the way to go. All right, number 3. Breakfast is not really a thing in Spain, I've noticed. Yes, there are cafes, but their breakfast usually consists of either you can get a really crappy croissant, which is not like even the croissant that I would get in Bali, which is a real French style croissant, or what they call tostado. And tostado is just like a piece of toasted bread with some stuff on top, usually either sometimes avocado, sometimes other stuff, but very rarely eggs. And I'm someone who needs protein in the morning and eggs are a part of my basic breakfast diet. But the kind of a Mexican style breakfast that I was used to living in Mexico, whether that was burritos or huevos revueltos, otherwise known as scrambled eggs, not a thing here in Spain. So what I ended up doing is going grocery shopping, and that's, for people who know me, something that I have not done in a long time because I don't cook. I haven't cooked since I left the United States 6 years ago. But being in Madrid, I've been forced to make my own breakfast. Also because it's a bit expensive, honestly, going out for every meal every day here. So, you know, I went and I bought my own whole wheat bread, and there's a toaster in this Airbnb, and just hard-boiled some eggs. So that's something that I recommend if your breakfast, you know, is important to you and you don't want to eat these stupid tostados every day in a cafe for breakfast and also pay like €4 for a coffee. Number 4 is choose wisely where you stay in Madrid, because each neighborhood, at least talking kind of around the center, has its own vibe, its own feel. I'm staying in a neighborhood called Lavapiés, and again, I knew nothing about Madrid when I came here, so I was just looking, okay, what seems kind of central and what Airbnb has a good design, and that's how I ended up staying in this neighborhood. I didn't realize that this particular neighborhood, for example, it's quite bohemian, but it's also full of immigrants. So people have told me at various times that I also need to just sort of like watch out for myself at night. To be honest, I've had no issues here. At times it does seem a little bit sketchy, but really not like any worse than, I don't know, probably most neighborhoods in New York or even Los Angeles or San Francisco at this point. And there are a lot of police that are constantly roaming around, which is a bit reassuring. Other neighborhoods, though, to be aware of that you might be interested in, Salamanca is like the most elegant chic. That's like if you're on Fifth Avenue in New York or something. La Chueca, which could be like Chelsea in New York. It's the most inclusive neighborhood and very kind of known as like the gay center of Madrid. And Malasaña, which is the grungiest, I guess, part in the center. And then, you know, there's areas outside of that, but I really recommend staying in the center. Number 5. So that brings me to my next point, which is that Madrid is such an incredibly walkable city if you are staying in the center. So as I said, I'm staying in Lavapiés, but I can walk to that Salamanca, the really chic area, within 25-30 minutes, and the walk is really pleasant because the streets here are so nice and you're looking at beautiful things all the time, and it's mostly flat, and when the weather is great and the sun is out, it's just, oh, it's so absolutely gorgeous, and there's so many beautiful parks and everything, so walkable. And that's something that is one of my favorite, honestly, activities to do in a city like this in Europe, is just to walk around, and that's how I really like live and experience a city. So I highly recommend that. Bring some decently comfortable walking shoes, but also stylish, because I think Madrid is a pretty stylish place, though it's also kind of full of weird hippies at the same time. But if you're a stylish person, bring your stylish/walkable shoes. Number 6, you do not need to tip in Madrid in restaurants. That's included just like it is in France. So that's not really a thing, but that does lead me to point number 7, which is that service tends to be pretty lamentable. Is that even a word in English? In French, lamentable is like quite bad in Spain, and at least in Madrid. Actually, that's been my experience. Maybe 50% of the time I've had good service, like 50% of the time, and bad service 50% of the time. But I mean, as you would imagine, if you're not incentivized by earning tips, like you're not that incentivized to be super friendly. So there have been times in restaurants where I've been quite badly treated, like neglected, quite frankly, or almost abused in terms of how they tried to overcharge me for ridiculous things. I've gotten into 2 fights here in restaurants because I'm someone who will stand up for myself. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, this is if you're staying for longer and you're just sort of wandering about and you don't have like a list of, let's say, what the best restaurants are in the city, and you're not staying at the Four Seasons and eating there every day. If you're just sort of wandering about, you're definitely going to get a mixed bag of service. Number 8, it's true that people eat ridiculously late in Madrid. Restaurants, almost all restaurants, don't open before 8:30 p.m. Yes, you can find some that do, but it's like quite rare. And for me, coming from Bali, where restaurants close at like 9 or 10 o'clock, it's definitely a culture shock. Also because I just don't think it's very healthy to eat that late at night. I'm someone who does basically intermittent fasting. But yeah, I would say also in relation to how late people eat here, it's not particularly the most health conscious place of observing how people eat. Again, the kind of things that they eat for breakfast and then eating so late at night, and people do tend to drink a lot. Like I see people drinking and smoking outside on the sidewalks, en terrasse, as we say in French, all the damn time. So I just don't understand how people can be healthy in those kinds of conditions, you know, diet-wise. Again, that's something you might want to think about. If you're not a super late eater, then you may find yourself cooking more at home, or you know, just really trying to make adjustments to your life. So like I take a rather long nap in the afternoon, and I eat my lunch pretty late so that I, go earliest, like for the first service, usually at 8:30. But I've had a couple dates here where, we end up eating dinner starting at 10 p.m. And to me, that's just kind of crazy, but that's life in Madrid. Number 9. So one of the things that I love about Madrid and Europe in general, but I've definitely noticed in Madrid, cafe culture is really big here. So there are tons of adorable cafes. Like I said, these are the kinds of places also where you would probably get your tostado for breakfast and your overpriced coffee. But people just go there and hang out, and often they bring their laptops. It's like instead of Starbucks, you find these really unique, bohemian, cute cafes, and it's just really charming and very European. And I find that Madrid is a place that has many international students, so these young people bring their own kind of youthful energy and are usually there in the cafes. The only downside is that at peak hours, and especially on the weekends, they tend to be packed, and so you might be waiting outside just to get a table inside. I'm not waiting around, so then I'll just like try to find somewhere else to go. But that was my experience a couple times, is that I would go to a place to try to have brunch on a weekend, and it was totally packed, and there was like a line of 10 people waiting outside, and I'm like, there is no way I'm waiting in what is rather cold weather here in wintertime for a table. All right, so the last thing that you want to know about Madrid, and maybe my favorite one, is that the wine is very good and very cheap here. I have discovered a taste for Rioja, which is the local Spanish wine, and you can find bottles for as cheap as a little bit over €1 in the supermarket. And even, hold on, this smells so good, I need to take a sip. Not bad at all. Even in a restaurant, you can get a glass of Rioja for €3 or €4. So it is very, very affordable. Coming from Bali, where alcohol is very heavily taxed, it's kind of a delightful surprise here to find such great quality wine at such cheap prices. And the other thing to note is just that people drink like all day long here. They drink with lunch, they drink with dinner, they drink after dinner, they drink before dinner. So it's a very alcohol-based culture and society. But maybe when the wine is this good and this cheap, that's just how it goes. I don't know what to say, but salud. And I'm recording this video, I think, at 1 o'clock. So normally I don't drink this early, but just for you guys and for this special occasion, as it actually is my last day in Madrid. Anyway, gracias for watching this video. I hope it helped you. And when you come to Madrid and come to Spain, have a great time. I definitely did. Until the next video, guys, take care. Chin chin. See you later.